different organizations look at it, maintenance cost, and how it can be used in your day-to-day decision making from a reliability and maintenance standpoint. So let us start with, before we start, I would like to take a poll. So Nilesh, can you please help?
Yeah, sure. What CMMS software do you currently use? Options are SAP, Maximo, Infor, DataStream, Oracle, or any other. Okay, we have the results here. 40%, 41% use Maximo, 12% use SAP, and 35% use other CMMS softwares.
All right. I also have another follow-up question. Nilesh, can you please?
Sure. What reporting or data analysis software do you primarily use for CMMS? It is BERT, Cognos, SAP BW, Crystal BO, or any other. Polls are ready. 33% use BERT, 13% use Crystal BO, and 53% use other.
All right. Okay, so let's start. Over the years, the expectations from maintenance has changed, and this is, we all know that in the first generation it was just fix it when it breaks. In the second generation there was a lot more emphasis on higher availability, lowering the cost of maintenance, and longer asset life. But in recent days we are more focused on other aspects as well. We not only want to have higher availability, but we want to have a greater cost effectiveness, greater safety, better product quality, all the rest of the things that these assets are used for. So that kind of puts a different perspective on the cost factor itself and other maintenance priorities that we might have. So what we have seen in many companies, there are different drivers, and companies have different pressure points, and the focus kind of changes. So obviously everybody wants higher return on their assets. It could be net assets or the replacement value or the current value, however you calculate that, but everybody wants higher returns on their investments. They want to delay the capex because of the economic environment in some situations. So obviously there is an aging asset, so that is another issue to deal with, regulatory compliance, etc. So these were the survey done by some industry surveys were done, and this is what we have seen, drivers from an upper management or from shareholders or stakeholders. So just to keep things in perspective, so there are financial KPIs, and then obviously we have there are two sides of it. Is we have obligation to manage our cost, at the same time ensure that we have higher reliability. So these are some of the things which we have seen kind of give you a perspective what the best in class is doing and what others are doing. Obviously total maintenance cost, revenue growth, depending on whatever the business you are in, the cost of downtime, etc. We have seen how people are trying to monitor this so that they can see how they stack up against the industry standards. So what is the financial impact? You know, how does our efforts in asset management have a impact on the company's bottom line, as well as in some cases top line? So we have seen different aspects of this, where companies need effectively balance between these two competing priorities: reduce the operating costs, reduce the capex requirement, revenue growth, and at the same time increase the asset utilization. So there are balancing that everybody has to do. Capital for both investment and operation purpose is becoming harder. Reduce capital expenditure. Budgeting means the assets have to become more productive. Need to manage investment. The working capital is also becoming challenge in certain industries and for certain businesses. And there is a lot of scrutiny around whatever investments that we do in maintenance, we have to justify. So we are going to touch some of those aspects in today's discussion. So before I move forward, I have some other polling question. Nilesh, can you just?
Sure. Rate the quality of your cost-related data within CMMS in terms of accuracy, consistency, and completeness. It is very good, it is good, it is poor, or very poor. Sunil, 52% say they have good quality of data, and 25% say they have poor quality, whereas 17% have very poor quality, and 8% have very good quality.
Great. So by and large, everybody has a reasonable cost-related data they are capturing. And in some companies, people capture within the ERP systems based on GL codes, based on a purchase that they are doing. And of course, the fixed asset register is maintained in many cases from a depreciation perspective in the ERP side. So, okay, so that kind of helps. To follow up, I have another question, Nilesh.
Yeah. Do you perform data audit to assess the data quality?
Okay.
Yeah. 38% say yes, they perform data audit, and 45% don't perform data audit, while 18% are planning to perform data audit.
All right. Great. And the relevance of here is, if it depends on how granular somebody wants to go in terms of analyzing the impact of all the activities that we do in enterprise asset management. So we'll touch on the relevance of these two questions, and if you get good at managing that, you will have a lot more control on the cost control and control on all the activities that you perform. So what we have seen is many companies lack the ability to identify actions or take timely actions because of a variety of situations, and part of that is the way we capture data. Labor data at work order level, at the task level. If we have, in most large companies have spent time to standardize on that, so that really helps in achieving or calculating detail level cost associated with the type of work that is being performed. And we have seen some companies have purchase data is managed, so they have enough information on the purchase side of it, but sometimes the work order data is little suspect and it is not available. It is maybe sometimes it's an ERP and it's in the disparate system, so kind of becomes hard to get to, etc. And sometimes the reports are little complex and has too much information at times and has too little. So again, there is a balancing act to perform. And as you become more sophisticated, your actions are managed, your decisions can be performed using the information that you get from all these reports. And that's really how you can actually make a value-based decisions, where you look at whatever the investments you are making, whether that's yielding you the results that you expect. Many companies kind of struggle with it, and they rely less on detailed cost analysis. They'll have a broad budget and broad cost, but detail level is lacking because sometimes IT is kind of has different priorities or is not involved in configuring some of the CMMS applications that are in use, and hence that the detail level data is not captured. The CMMS is not mature. So quality has been, as in our survey, maybe about 60% people have reasonably good quality. So that's much improvement. We have done similar survey in the past, and it was much poor when you go to the detail. Standardization is a challenge we have seen, and a lot of times other priorities take precedence, and then some of these data is not captured. And generally there is a lack of culture on making maintenance decision based on cost and the comparison between the benefit and the cost. Most of the people will make decision based on cost alone, and that can be challenging. And all this really is because of the leadership's involvement in getting into the details. So let's look at the business case. Most of us want to reduce maintenance spend, want to be more effective with our resources and efficient, increase output, capacity, utilization. Of course, we all want to improve our working capital associated with maintenance management, whether it's spare parts and any other tools or any services that you might be engaging with. So everybody wants to focus and kind of reduce that over a period of time, but that also has impact on EHS or any other compliance, FDA in case of pharma. So there has to be some sort of balance here. And overall, the spend management is important from as far as upper management or stakeholders is concerned. So I'm just going to go through a few things which will, in cases where you may have SLAs with third-party service providers, and you may have contracted to third-party and want to manage the cost associated with that. And overall, what we have seen is planned maintenance cost, and it's kind of universal, is much lower than unplanned maintenance. But the trick here is to know what that factor is, whether it's 1.5 times lower or whether it's 3 times lower, because that will allow you to ensure the kind of investments that you want to make in the RCM program or PDM program or any other condition-based monitoring or any other investments you are going to do, or your existing PM program that you might have. So knowing this cost will allow you to make more informed decision. And of course, this will have direct impact on your working capital. The inventory, spares inventory that you have, sometimes depending on your type of industry you are in, we have seen anywhere between 2% to 4%. In some cases, it could be just 0.5%. The total spares, the inventory that you might have compared to the asset value. Now that the denominator here can be a little subjective, because if you take the cost of replacement and then do it, it may come down the percentage wise. But if you take a depreciated value, then obviously in some companies the ratio might be much higher. And so on a regular basis, one has to do the analysis on how much the working capital in spares and other investments you might have. So let's look at how the asset value, the realization can be done in terms of dollars, in terms of all other things. So primarily the assets are there for these reasons, and this is an example of a company that was trying to figure out the asset value realization. They want to increase the throughput, especially in the manufacturing setup. They want to reduce the cost associated with maintenance and other operations. Of course, reduce the SHE related, the safety, health, and environmental risk. And obviously, whatever you are producing, this was done for a manufacturing, and this is an example from a manufacturing company. So they wanted to increase the product quality. And so they came up with some of these factors which they believed will help towards these goals. And most of these may sound like nothing to do with cost, but kind of has a direct impact on the investments that you make in the maintenance programs, as well as the value that you are getting out of those assets. So if you try to look at it, some might just look at MTBF, or you look at labor utilization. All this somehow has a direct impact on your cost, and that's really the purpose of this. They wanted to kind of figure out how efficient the maintenance operations is, and whatever the investments they are making, are they getting any results out of that? So there is another model where people would like to see the throughput, obviously the financials, risk, and the one additional factor we have seen is the organization's preparedness and maturity. As you, as an organization, once you start capturing data at that level and utilize it and make the decisions based on data and information that you get, you will have a different set of results, or you will have a lot more control on all the activities that you perform. So by and large, we have seen asset performance per se kind of relates as far as overall business is concerned. As far as within maintenance, so maintenance in this context, the maintenance is not really projected. It is part of asset performance, but it is really having direct impact on all these other factors. So before I move forward, Nilesh, can you just get another polling question, please?
Yeah, sure. Do you have a formal process to justify investment in maintenance initiatives like calculation of ROI, payback period, etc.? Okay, so 44% don't have any formal process, and 40% have a good formal process in place, whereas 17% have very poor formal process to justify investment in maintenance initiatives.
Okay, so there is another follow-up question to that related to that, and I'll come back to the importance of it, and we'll show some examples related to that and get to the details. Can you get to the next question, please?
Sure. Sure. Do you have any formal asset data analytics initiative? Okay. 38% say yes, 40% say no, and 21% are planning to initiate the analytics initiative.
All right. Of course, there are many ways of making decisions, and the relevance here is whatever the data that you have, cost-related data, how can you leverage it to probably ask more money from your upper management, and how do you actually justify it? So let's look at one example. Across industry, a lot of ways OEE is used, and of course, depending on what industry we are in, the importance of OEE might differ. But by and large, most companies, will have some impact or can be used in kind of understanding, or it will be important from managing. So the 4 factors that we looked at in earlier example always had performance and quality and availability, and of course the risk here is probably not written in this example, but so this was calculated for an example where the relationship was built between OEE, as you can see here, with the profit and, of course, the overall return on capital employed. So this example, depending on the industry, will change, and it may not have the exact calculation may vary and the factors might vary. But by and large, if one can come up with some sort of relationship of asset performance with the profit and the return on the overall capital employed, I think that can give you a good starting point for justifying whatever the investments you do. And of course, a similar thing can be done just to see whether the increasing reliability, how does it impact. So if you're coming up with a new CBM or some sort of vibration analysis or any other PDM or any other investment in maintenance, maybe this will allow you to kind of see how it impacts the business, and that will help you justify the investments. So let's look at this OEE, and this is a normal, and of course these numbers are a little bit made up, but at the same time this is just to drive the importance of OEE and how one can justify. So here we are saying the OEE is just 60% and it is giving you a 6.81% return. So let's say OEE increases by 70%, as in this example. And you could see between the two cases, the net profit increased by $9.3 million. Obviously, this is an example. Your situation might vary, might change. The factors may change. Whether it's realistic to increase it by 10%, all those things will vary between, depending on what the situation. But the point here driven is how OEE has a direct impact on the profitability of the company. Let's look at another. So we keep the OEE constant at 60%, and we increase the price by 6%. In this case, same earning power, and it kind of gives you a different perspective here. So even if you change price alone for your products that you're selling, of course it will add to your profit, but it has a different impact. Let's take another example where we keep the maintenance cost we reduced, whether it has any direct impact on your overall profit. And these scenarios, again, this is built more to explain how different factors one can actually explain to the upper management why a certain amount of maintenance investments in certain initiatives can actually have impact on the profitability of the company. So as you can see, there is not much difference here. So similarly, you can actually build, this is another example where a company had whatever the, for each site they will, any investment that they will do, they kind of came up with a template which will allow them to make that investment decisions and how to justify. So the details may vary, but the idea, the underneath idea here is that the spreadsheet may be something that you would like to build it for yourself and see how it is relevant to your business. So this is another example. So this was the current financial situation, and the payback period you can calculate, and then if you make X dollars additional investments, how long it will take to get back that investment. And some of the details in this short presentation may not be appropriate, but the point that I want to drive here is to how you can use some of this type of analysis. And most of the maintenance managers are good with maintenance, the engineering side of it, but this costing can be very helpful when you request additional budgets for any initiatives that you might have. We're also seeing that how the failure avoidance cost can be calculated. And this is just example of a steam trap, how that, the savings based on a variety of things that you might do, how reliability initiatives that you might have, RCM initiatives, or you may install some additional equipment, how can you actually justify and how does it actually impact your bottom line? So this is strictly kind of describing what the benefit of a failure avoidance is. So for air handlers, this was a cost sheet that was built, and they had different PDM analysis being done, received actions, findings, and they kind of started monitoring because of any inspection or any other initiative that they have, how many times they avoided a failure, and because they avoided a failure, what the cost was avoided in terms of repair cost as well as the downtime cost. And then of course they kept kept the track of all of this, and then for each one of these unit, like in this example, it's air handling unit, and they kept track of all the cost the way based on their reliability program, and then in the end they were trying to show how each one of these different pieces of equipment or a class of equipment based on the RCM program or any other maintenance initiatives, how much money they really saved. And this may sound a little fuzzy in terms of there is no direct cost to the company in terms of this failure avoidance, but this is more for a justification on the investments that you have already made in some of your programs. And then, of course, same analysis can be done by failure code for a particular piece of equipment, and you can go to a granular level. When there is a critical assets, you might treat little differently than non-critical assets, etc. So basically, if you capture some of this information at an asset level, it will help you get to the details. And this is an example where they have different failure codes they were trying to avoid failure and thereby the cost associated with it. And then eventually, obviously, they will like to also look at the actual corrective cost that they have spent. So that way they can compare how they did in both cases. So this was another example of vibration analysis. Because of vibration analysis, how much cost was saved. Okay, so moving on, let's look at the budget. So there are different ways of budgeting for maintenance. Some companies start zero-based, start with a clean sheet every year and then go from there. Some companies will use, some managers will use previous budget. Of course, everybody references the previous year's budget, but you can actually look at in many different ways and look at a different what-if scenario and kind of arrive at a budget that can give you flexibility, at the same time give you some sort of justification with the upper management to get the dollars that is required in the maintenance. We have seen from a cost control perspective, there is always going to be some sort of estimates. So to arrive at some estimates, you need some inputs, all the factors that go into your maintenance, your scope, the work breakdown, all of these things that you might do, your PM programs, PDM programs, and then you may use certain factors from the historic data to estimate and then come up with some activity costs and all of it, which again, you can take the historic data and kind of see where you are and then estimate, and then based on that you might do a budget, and then of course you would like to monitor how you are performing against that budget. So different companies have different controlling ways of controlling cost or a process to control the cost, and you might do it every month, or you might have a quarterly review and look at where you are and what adjustments you will have to make and where you are deviating from your planned budget versus actually what you are spending. And this is just as an example. Chart of accounts might be part of ERP. In some companies, it's a lot of detailed chart of accounts for all the things that they do from maintenance point of view. In some companies, it could be just a broad head for the maintenance activities. In that case, then it's the responsibility of the individual managers or how they monitor the cost at a granular level. So this is just an example of how cost management control process you might derive, and this could be something that you standardize, and then all other managers from different sites, different plants can kind of use it within the company. Most companies, most plants have their own way of managing it, and a lot of times production heads will control that, etc. But by and large, we have seen this formal structure will help. So what we think, what we have seen is the data is scattered within the organization. Some data related to the asset data might be in ERP. Some data might be in some other systems like time and attendance data, etc. So to get a holistic view of all the cost related, it's very that's really the power of data, that you can leverage that into your advantage. Whatever decisions that you make for strategic decisions you make, and executing of those strategies, and then of course adjusting based on the results and the outcomes, all this you need data analysis to help in that matter. Whatever your goals are, corporate goals are, you can align with it and monitor it with help of data analysis. So there is a lot of advantages of making data-driven decisions, and kind of get everybody involved in the organizations to look at it on a day-to-day basis. So before I go and show an example, by and large, just don't focus on the cost. Instead, focus on what drives the cost. Understand the root cause of cost drivers, and maybe that will give you a little different perspective. So what I'm going to do is show some samples here of the reports that we have done in the past, and what we have seen companies use. So at this stage, at a very high level, we all, of course, this is a cost analysis focused webinar. So, but at the same time, while we are looking at the cost, it's good to kind of see the overall picture of how asset management is performing, because most of the time there is no, just cost doesn't really, as we discussed in previous slide, just don't focus on the cost alone, but look at the drivers. So some of these other factors will really impact the overall performance. So we have seen related to maintenance management, related to asset reliability related KPIs, or you go look at the the materials management, and at the same time look at the budget, how we all are doing CM cost and work order cost, etc. So moving on, another way to look at the overall big picture is to look at the work order types, the downtime, because this in certain industries, this can be a biggest driver in terms of why the cost is that important. The cost of downtime can be very, very high in certain industries, and so it's very important to look at that and its impact. So we have also seen the material cost, and get the big picture. I think that will give you a sense of how overall performance is. Let's look at another way. Some information may seem like we are looking at the same thing, but it's kind of different ways of looking. And when we mash up information of different KPIs together, it kind of will give you a different perspective. It will give you how overall your maintenance activities are performing. So here we are looking at downtime, labor hours, and cost, and MTBF. So obviously, a reliability-centric organization would like to see the investments that you make in maintenance activities against the reliability that you are achieving. If somebody is really driven by the overall plant performance, then in that case one would like to look at the output or the production targets also. So here it is showing you the production targets. Most companies will have maintenance, especially in the manufacturing sectors, directly under the production department. So in that case, the sole purpose of in that circumstances, sole purpose of the maintenance is to support the production group. So they would like to see the production, look at the availability of the assets, look at the trailing 6 months quality that was of all the products that was produced. Some of the data may not come directly from CMMS. It may come from some other, so in this case it may come from a quality system. The production data may come from ERP, and the cost itself can come from ERP and CMMS. So, but really from a decision-making perspective, putting all these things together allows you to look at the overall performance of the organization, and then obviously you can go and further drill down and look at different aspects. So here there is a maintenance cost is also projected, and then there is trailing 6 months energy cost. In some companies this could be your biggest driver. Underperforming assets may be consuming more energy than you would think, and maybe in some companies they will monitor the energy cost. So if an asset is well maintained, overall the energy cost can be much different than the asset which is not maintained well. And then look at the other aspects of your reliability goals also. This is an example where if you're really going by site, or you can have some other parameters too, and look at the cost comparison summary, what was estimated, what is actual, and so essentially at a work order level also many companies will estimate the cost based on the actual labor hours, the labor hours that they expect to put onto those work orders, as well as the material that might use or a third-party service, and then compute the cost accordingly. And so to look at the planner's effectiveness, they may look at the estimated cost and the actual cost, and then see how whether the planners are doing a good job of planning the work orders and estimating it correctly or not. So this is one. Another example could be related to similar thing, but you can take a different view, look at a different site, then different time period, and look at the actual cost versus estimated cost. And this can give you kind of a sense of how your budgets are performing, how your YTD plans look like, etc. So it kind of gives you at a midpoint during your financial year, one can look at how they are doing and what adjustments they would have to make in order to comply with the budgets that they have for their maintenance activity. And then same thing, you can actually go into details, what work orders, type of work orders you were able to estimate correctly and what you were not. So there are different ways one can actually look at the cost. If you are capturing the cost, then it would give you a lot more flexibility to look at it. Okay, so another way to look at is from a budget standpoint. Again, there are three things here. We are saying the actual cost, obviously it's compared against the estimated cost, which is based on the planner's input, and then obviously then there is an overall budget that one needs to compare. So All these three things have to be kind of managed well. So the granularity in data capturing really helps you analyze data in a much better way. Now, obviously, we talked at a high end, but when we want to actually analyze what are my, if you want to do any sort of ranking where you want to see what is my, give me the top 20 maintenance cost by equipment. What type of equipments are taking the highest cost of maintenance? So this type of ranking can actually allow you then you can focus on those pieces of equipment that is taking most of your budget in maintaining. This type of ranking, then you can actually look at the hours, and so sometimes the constraint can be your labor hours because you don't have budget to employ additional employees, and hence even here it is looked from an hour standpoint, but it has a direct cost impact. And then you can actually look at from equipment type also, where are you spending your PM and PDM type of, so here PREV means preventive maintenance related investments you do. So you want to see in what type of asset you are investing the most. So again, the ranking kind of gives you that whole 80-20 rule, Pareto analysis kind of goes well with this thought process, where most of the time you will see that 20% of your asset will consume your 80% of maintenance budget. So some of these type of analysis can give you a sense of where the money is going. You can also look at from again number of work order counts and look at from that point if you're not capturing dollars and cents on each work order, and some companies have challenge, then in that case they may look at it from a work order count itself and maybe extrapolate theoretically the impact on the cost and go like that. Same thing, you might do it from a failure angle. Which failure is taking most of your money? So as far as repair costs are concerned, you can focus on then failure itself. So these are different ways you can rank it and find the group of assets that are really a problem asset or a bad actors, or it may not be, because if you, let's say you are in an automobile industry and has a lot of robots, obviously that's going to be your highest cost. But it kind of gives you a perspective of where the money is going and whether you can have initiative that can reduce those costs. Let's look at another example of a downtime. The cost of downtime in some industries can be very, very expensive, and what it allows you, if there is a way if companies can calculate downtime cost, there is a theoretical calculation and then there is a practical calculations, and it can become a little fuzzy, but by and large we have seen some companies who practice it. It may not be 100% accurate, but if it gives you kind of a sense of what that downtime cost, I think it'll be immensely helpful in making investment decisions in the maintenance activities. And we have seen some companies spend considerable time in arriving at those costs and then use that in justifying the investment. So this is an example where we are just looking at the top 10 equipment from a downtime perspective. So maybe, which we also do it from a criticality standpoint, and then the criticality of the equipment and the downtime, all those things kind of go together. But this will allow you to actually put a dollars and cents on that criticality decision itself. And then from a report like this, you can actually go to the exact work orders and the equipments that are contributing to the downtime and focus on that. Let's look at overall, work order, total maintenance cost by work type. So how much are we really investing into? I'm just moving on to another area where now that we invest into preventive maintenance or proactive maintenance. In that case, we want to see what type of proactive maintenance we are doing and whether it has any impact on the corrective maintenance cost itself. So obviously, you may have different types of work done on a piece of equipment, and just for example's sake, this is just showing only 5 types of work, but in reality, some companies may manage all the different PDM programs and CBM programs that they have and look at it from that. And then, whether it has any impact on the corrective maintenance and whether that is reducing the corrective maintenance or not, and that way you can actually monitor it, your program itself. Another example, at a work order level, if somebody wants to see planning versus actuals and look at that. Statistically also, there are, if you have a same set of or group of or types of equipment in this asset class, then actually you can estimate asset life cycle costing. And in this case, life cycle costing is an interesting topic from the sense of where you can take the initial investments, all the design, everything that goes into installation and commissioning of that asset, and then the operations as well as the future maintenance cost. And so there is the total cost of asset ownership and life cycle costing kind of goes together, but at times in this case you might do some projections. So this is an example where, based on the historic data, this was the historic data of all the work orders performed on that class of assets, you can actually come with a projection what it might cost in the life of that asset. So certain assets may, and there is an associated analysis where you might project the life of the asset itself. What we call it mean residual life of the asset, or the survival analysis, which will allow you to project the life of the asset, then extrapolate this information from the past base of the cost, maintenance cost, and then project it for that. So it's a little statistical. So I just wanted to kind of highlight. So there are some other techniques that you can use to compute the life cycle cost. Sometimes do forecasting techniques, may use Weibull analysis, Monte Carlo simulation, and kind of project the failures you might have, the cost that you might have from preventive maintenance or proactive maintenance, and kind of add all that and look at the total life cycle cost based on the residual life of that asset and the whatever that you have already invested. So this is another example where you can actually look at the total cost life cycle. So these were different examples that this is another example where we call it. So you, on the same asset, you might do similar type of maintenance, and this will allow you to actually look at this type of the outlier. The analysis will allow these IR charts will allow you to look at the outliers. In this example, there is no outlier, but in reality, it can show you if for the same type of work, if you have 100 pumps and you do the same type of work or same work or type of work order, are they the cost is in line or not? So if you have 3 vendors performing that work, or 3 different people doing the work, are we in line with or not? So this exception reporting can be very useful in understanding the problem areas or the bad actors within the organization. So this will allow you to find where the exceptions are in a report like this. Let's look at another area from forecasting itself. There are different ways of forecasting, and this will go with the other report that we talked about from a life cycle, but this can be done at a total maintenance cost itself. So it's really at a plant level or something like that, where you can actually use some statistical function to project. Another analysis is repair versus replace decisions. This is an interesting, So obviously there is a lot of input from an engineering perspective also, but from a pure statistical perspective, one can actually arrive at when to make a run to fail type of decision, and how do you actually arrive. Simple example from a car perspective, if your car engine breaks at 130,000 miles versus engine failing at 40,000 miles, those decisions will vary, and you can actually use some of these methods to arrive when to decide run to fail versus repair, and so repair versus replace decisions can be made. So this is statistically you can actually look at from the past data and kind of arrive at the maintenance cost and operation cost, and maybe you would like to decide based on that. Let's look at another one. Again, this is a maintenance forecasting, maintenance cost using certain techniques, statistical techniques. Also, you can actually perform vendor analysis, and vendor analysis can be done perspective of reliability, and in this case the reliability is taken into account, where if you have 3 different manufacturers or vendor providing the piece of equipment, then how do you judge which vendor has performed well compared to the other? So that's one way to, one of the ways is to kind of see the overall performance and then look at which vendor has performed. So you can actually take into account the investments that you have made in that piece of equipment, look at the reliability, and look at the overall performance of that piece, that equipment, and kind of put it into perspective. So that way you can actually judge which, if you're buying pumps from 3 different vendors, then you can actually figure out which vendor has performed well over a period of time, just on a cost basis. Of course, there are other soft qualities that you might look at, but the cost itself can have a little higher weightage on when you evaluate a vendor. Let's look at some other examples where you might look at the residual life of the asset. This will allow you to actually calculate the overall cost of the assets over the life cycle cost of that asset. You can actually, based on the remaining life of that asset. Of course, manufacturer, the providers will tell you what the general life of that asset is, but the conditions in which it is used, it's specific to that particular plant, that particular operation. So obviously that will have a direct impact on your cost itself. So sometimes 2-3 analysis together can actually give you a different perspective. So let's look at something else also. In this case, we are looking at the total cost of asset ownership, and this example is actually this is a type of a what-if type of scenario. So what it is going to do is it will allow you, and in this case, you can actually change the if you're trying to calculate economic order. Actually, sorry, I think we were looking at total cost of asset ownership. Then you can actually look at the total hours, operations hours. So some data might come from some other system, but it actually allows you, how long you have been using this asset and how you are performing. So if you have different type of asset, then actually this will help you analyze. If you change the net present value, it will compute the net present value. It will also tell you if you increase the productivity, whether it has any direct impact or not. So that way this type of calculators will allow you to do what-if scenario. And this is just as an example of this, different factors that were taken into account, depreciation and interest rate and all of that, the energy cost. So obviously to arrive at the calculation on a particular type of asset may differ, but once you do it for all critical assets and expensive assets, it kind of will give you a sense of how it is calculated, so you can actually do the various type of analysis. Similarly, you can do it for economic order quantity, where if you're buying a lot of spares, you can actually kind of look at the total cost of that in a year. If you buy 3 times, how it will work, and kind of reduce. So these type of calculators you can actually build for different pieces of equipment, or in this case it's spares, so it will allow you to look at the cost factors and what you can control, and if you negotiate a better terms, how it will impact your overall working capital. So I think Nilesh, we are already at 1:53, so maybe we'll spend some time on the questions. So maybe we can open it up for the question answer.
Sure. I'll request all the attendees to please pose the questions. Though Sunil, we have a lot of questions in pipeline already. First of one of them is, how do you justify the investment in new initiatives to the management?
Great question. Actually, most of the time we have seen, as we discussed earlier, arriving at the benefit itself and putting a dollar value associated with it is a challenge. And obviously there are some qualitative aspect of the usage of asset. There are some things which, like environmental, health, safety, risk. Obviously we can actually you can't put a dollar value on safety, for example, but so it's kind of essential. But beyond that, anything non-qualitative benefits can be listed and looked at it in different perspective, and it will help determine dollar spent in maintenance or preventive maintenance or proactive maintenance. How does it impact the top line of the organization as well as the bottom line, or the profit or the revenue, or however you choose to do it. But by and large, looking at the profit and then the asset investment, those two factors alone can justify that investment and what the payback period is.
Another question, Sunil, here is, how do you calculate cost of downtime?
Again, that goes with that previous question actually. The downtime cost, as we discussed, it's again, it's involved calculation. It takes a lot of efforts to understand the line cost, if in case downtime, whether it has a direct impact on the production schedule itself, and if it does, then what is that impact in terms of revenue to the company? And maybe that's how one should look at it. And then obviously there is a quality aspect of the downtime also, but you can put some value to it or some weightage for it, but that aspect needs to be, so it could be labor cost, it could be loss of production, the quality is substandard, and so you have a lot of rework or a lot of defects, and there is a cost associated with that. So many companies have spent time in actually figuring that out, and the details you get to, you'll get, if you're granular about collecting data, you'll get a lot better analysis on the downtime.
Sunil, there are a lot many questions. Quickly, last one question, and probably we'll answer the rest of the questions by mail. Last question is, our laborers do not want to record the detailed time data. How do they change this culture?
That is that's a very good question. Every company we have worked with has this challenge. They don't put the exact hours based on whatever the, historically they have not been using any sort of CMMS, or they were not asked to do it. So there is a lot of, it's a little political in some cases. In some cases it's the leadership. If the leadership drives it and ensures that they are monitoring those KPIs. So if they are not putting labor hours, then how do you justify your time in 40 hours work that you perform at the location or at the factory? So sometimes putting in the initial stages for the first maybe 3-6 months, that KPI will look bad. So you have 40 hours payment, and then okay, the hours logged into is only 10% or 5%, and then obviously everybody will dispute. But then gradually the culture in most cases cannot be changed overnight. But once you start tracking those type of KPIs, link the incentives, or some carrot and stick will all go together. So some sort of incentive, some sort of punishment for not entering, and then over a period of time that culture can be changed. But we have seen even large companies, 100-year-old, 50-year-old companies have taken that initiative, negotiated with the respective groups, and kind of asked them to enter that data. And it is extremely difficult, but the other part is making it easy for them to enter the data. If every time they have to get away from their work, and nobody likes paperwork, and it's kind of hard in some cases. So that's a challenge, but it can be changed over a period of time.
Hey, Sunil, a lot of questions. We will answer them by mail. Thank you very much, attendance. It was really great to have your interest in us. We will come up with some such more webinars, and we look forward to your interest in the same. Thank you very much, Sunil.
Hey, thank you all. Thank you all.